Hey everyone, I'm here with a quick video on how to get your FPS up on Final Fantasy VII Rebirth on a handheld PC like the Legion Go or the ROG Ally. Okay, real quick before we get into it, I have to confess that this is going a completely different way from how I originally planned this and how I originally recorded that video. And this is actually turning out to be more of an advertisement for Lossless Scaling Frame Generation or LSFG 3.0. So before I show you how to make the best of that, let me also tell you that there are some tweaks and edits that people have made, and I'm not discrediting them, but it didn't really seem to help me in my case. It was more of a placebo effect, if anything. But in full transparency, I'm going to include those links in the description and in a pinned comment below. And finally, if all you care about is how lossless scaling works with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth on the Legion Go, go ahead and check the timestamp so you can skip ahead to that part. Okay, let me start this off by saying you'll see countless videos out there showing you that you can visit Nexus Mods, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and download the engine.ini tweaks in this game user settings.ini and get improved performance. And that might just be the case if you have more powerful hardware, but that was not my experience at all using the Legion Go. Is that a limitation of the 16 gigs of RAM or the standard 3 gigs of VRAM? I'm not sure, but I'm showing you some of the footage that I've had of the over 15 hours that I've spent testing this. In my case, I found that updating the AMD drivers using lossless scaling frame generation and then using certain optimized settings within the game worked the best for me. Then again, I've done the same battles and fights all over so many times, I'm confused now. Okay, that's enough of my babbling. Let's get into the optimized settings. So going into the graphics settings, you'll notice there are things that say it's full screen and it will say 1080p or 720p. What I found is that it will actually scale to your Windows display settings if you're using something like Legion Space and presumably Armory Crate. So what I would suggest here is using the lower resolution like 720p on an ROG Ally or 800p on your Legion Go. This way you're going to get better performance, and truthfully it doesn't look that bad either. In terms of the other graphics settings, I've seen a couple of videos that suggest that some of these settings are broken, so I've actually just left them at low, but model textures I've played around with just to improve things a little bit more. Now, another thing that seems to affect things a lot is the dynamic resolution scaling, and it might be confusing how it's listed here because they show the minimum and maximum, and this is how they use the scaling methods. There's no native FSR support in this game, even though there are mods out there, from what I've seen, that will enable frame generation in-game, but it doesn't look as good as lossless scaling, so I've not bothered with that. Okay, back to the resolution scaling. For me personally, I found that the minimum 50% and the maximum 66% looks pretty acceptable, but if that really bothers you, maybe go 66% to 100%. Just know that that will affect your bottom line average FPS as well as your minimum 1% lows. I did also see another video that said that characters on screen doesn't really matter or affect FPS. I did find that this was the case as well, but maybe there will be a patch that changes this, so I've just left it at 7 and 3 for now. Okay, I'm going to move over now to the AMD software update. You can go ahead and skip this section if you already know how to sideload drivers. Basically though, you just click the link in the description which downloads the software from the AMD website. Then you try to install it and it'll give you an error. After that, all you need to do is open up Device Manager, then click on the display adapter, update drivers, search for the driver in this location on your C drive. Then you're going to click Have Disk and then select 780M graphics. You may have done this in the past, and if you did so, the address will auto-populate there. After that's done, it's going to be installed, but you might have noticed that AMD software or the Adrenaline app is broken. So what you need to do is navigate to this address that you see on screen and then install that. If it still doesn't populate, you might have to restart your device, but then after that, it should show up properly. Like I'm showing you here, that I have 25.1.1 installed on the Legion Go. If you're using another handheld like the 1X Player or the GPD Win Mini or something, you shouldn't have to go through this side loading stuff, and you should be able to just update normally. Now, if you're wondering why I'm suggesting this obvious update to a driver, it's because this one is new and it's listed as an optional one, but it clearly lists support for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. So like, is it optional or not? What are we doing here, guys? After installation of this driver, subjectively, I think it does affect the 1% lows or the stutters within Nibelheim, but maybe it has a greater effect later in the game, but I've not gotten there because all I'm doing is testing this game. Okay, and here's the final part that I asked you to skip to if this is all you care about. LSFG 3.0, an absolute game changer for handhelds like the Legion Go. And in case you haven't heard of this before, yes, this app is not free, and I did previously review it in my frame generation guide, but that one was really not that great, and this one is an absolute game changer. I'm not sure what kind of sorcery is being done here, but this is amazing. Basically how it works is you open it while you have your Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, or any other game open for that matter. Then you click these settings like the ones that I have on screen here. I suggest using LSFG 3.0, and then you don't have to use any kind of scalers. These would be upscalers like Snapdragon Game Super Resolution, AMD FSR, or even NVIDIA Image Scaling. For my experience testing this game, I didn't find that the scaling really improved the image that much, but hey, I haven't tried them all out. Now, a key thing that's often overlooked when using this app is to make sure that you lock your frame rate. And I wouldn't suggest locking the frame rate within the game here with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, so just leave that setting at 120 FPS and then open up Legion Space and then lock the frame rate there. I've set it at 30 generally because that will give us a 90 FPS, not exactly a true 90 FPS. Yes, I know, fake frames, but it feels pretty good. What's incredible is actually that you can even push this to ×4 frame generation and even get something like 120 FPS. Now, it's not perfect, of course. There is some garbling or some ghosting sometimes around Cloud's hair and even like the Buster Sword hilt, but honestly in motion, it looks and feels pretty good. Now, one thing before you get some crazy ideas like pumping up the FPS from 15 all the way to 45 or even 60, it's not going to make that a completely playable experience. I would at least go with 30 to 40 FPS to then generate additional frames. Couple this with the fact that you could probably combine this with AMD anti-lag in the AMD software and even the AMD super resolution, and I think we've got a winning formula right here. Okay, maybe with all my gushing I wasn't clear on how to get it work. Open up Lossless Scaling, then have your game also loaded up. Make sure that your frame rate is capped, and then once you have selected LSFG 3.0, you click Scale in the top right, then minimize that window, and then make sure you're back in the Final Fantasy VII or your other games window. Then you'll see in the top left corner the frames that are on the left, and then the generated, completed, altered frames on the right of that slash. So you'll be able to see on screen here that I'm getting over 100 FPS. So yeah, I should probably go actually play this game now. Thanks for clicking on the video. Make sure to slap the like and the subscribe buttons if you found this video helpful, and check me out on the Handhelds United podcast and YouTube channel. And of course, don't forget,
you are a beautiful person, so don't let anything hold you back.